Have you ever noticed how the harder you try to stay focused in our hyper-connected world, the more scattered and overwhelmed you feel? There's a reason for this, and once you see it, everything shifts. Let me show you what I mean. Right now, you're probably fighting a losing battle against distractions that seem to multiply faster than you can eliminate them. You've likely tried blocking websites, turning off notifications, organizing your workspace, and maybe even digital detoxes, only to find yourself more distracted than ever when you return to normal life. The problem isn't that you lack willpower or that you're inherently undisciplined. The problem is that you're using industrial-age solutions for information-age challenges. Most people approach focus like they're trying to build a dam to hold back a flood, using force, resistance, and rigid barriers to keep distractions out. But this approach is exhausting and ultimately futile because it's fighting against the very nature of how attention works in the modern world. You end up spending more energy battling distractions than you do engaging with what actually matters. What I'm about to share will completely transform how you understand focus and attention. By the end of our time together, you'll discover why the secret to staying focused isn't about eliminating distractions, but about developing such a deep relationship with your attention that external noise becomes irrelevant. You'll learn that true focus isn't about forcing your mind to concentrate. It's about creating conditions where concentration happens naturally and effortlessly. This isn't about becoming a monk or abandoning technology. It's about developing what we might call attention literacy, the ability to navigate our distracted world with grace, wisdom, and laser-like focus on what truly matters. When you master this, you don't just become more productive, you become more present, more creative, and more alive. Have you noticed how much of your mental energy goes into managing, filtering, and responding to the constant stream of information competing for your attention? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on trying to control external distractions rather than understanding what attention actually is and how it works. Picture this. You sit down to work on an important project determined to focus deeply. Within minutes, your phone buzzes with a notification. You ignore it, but now part of your mind is wondering what it was. A few minutes later, you remember an email you meant to send. You tell yourself to focus, but the thought keeps nagging at you. Then you hear your colleague talking in the next room and find yourself unconsciously listening to their conversation. Before you know it, an hour has passed and you've made little progress on what you intended to accomplish. Sound familiar? This scenario plays out millions of times every day because most people are trying to solve a 21st century problem with 20th century strategies. They're attempting to create focus through external control, turning off phones, closing doors, blocking websites, when the real challenge is internal. Your attention isn't being stolen by distractions, it's being voluntarily given away by a mind that hasn't learned to recognize its own patterns and choices. The deeper issue is that we're living in what researchers call an attention economy, a system designed to capture and monetize your focus. Every app, website, and digital platform is engineered by teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists to be as compelling and addictive as possible. They use techniques like variable reward schedules, social validation loops, and fear of missing out to create what's essentially digital crack cocaine for your attention. But here's what most people don't realize. The problem isn't the technology itself, it's that we've never been taught how to work with our attention skillfully. We've learned to read, write, and do mathematics, but nobody taught us attention literacy. We know how to drive cars safely in traffic, but we don't know how to navigate the information superhighway without constant mental accidents. This creates what we might call attention fragmentation, a state where your mind is constantly divided between multiple streams of input, never fully present with any single experience. Your consciousness becomes like a radio scanning between stations, picking up fragments of different broadcasts, but never settling long enough to clearly receive any complete message.
The cost of this fragmentation goes far beyond productivity. When your attention is constantly scattered, you lose the capacity for deep thinking, creative insights, and meaningful connection. You start living on the surface of your experience, skimming across the top of life like a stone skipping on water, never diving deep enough to discover the profound treasures that await in the depths of sustained focus. Think about the last time you were completely absorbed in something, perhaps reading a captivating book, having an engaging conversation, or working on a project that excited you. In those moments, distractions weren't a problem because your attention was naturally and effortlessly engaged. The difference wasn't that fewer distractions were present, it was that your attention was so fully committed that distractions became irrelevant. This reveals a fundamental truth about focus. It's not about the absence of distractions, but about the presence of engagement. When your attention is genuinely captivated by something meaningful, you naturally enter what psychologists call flow state, a condition of effortless concentration where hours can pass like minutes and your performance reaches peak levels. The modern world hasn't made focus impossible. It's made shallow focus impossible while making deep focus more valuable than ever. Those who learn to cultivate sustained attention in an age of distraction develop what amounts to a superpower, the ability to think deeply, create meaningfully, and connect authentically in a world where these capacities are increasingly rare. But developing this superpower requires understanding that attention isn't a resource to be conserved. It's a skill to be developed. Just as you can strengthen your body through physical exercise, you can strengthen your capacity for focus through attention training. The question isn't whether you have enough willpower to resist distractions, it's whether you've developed the skills necessary to work with your attention skillfully. This shift in understanding changes everything. Instead of fighting a war against distractions, you begin cultivating a garden of focus. Instead of using force to control your attention, you learn to guide it with wisdom and patience. Instead of seeing the modern world as the enemy of deep work, you begin to see it as the perfect training ground for developing extraordinary powers of concentration. Let me tell you about a master archer in ancient China who was renowned throughout the empire for his extraordinary ability to hit impossibly small targets from great distances. Students would travel for months to learn from him, expecting to discover some secret technique or special equipment that gave him his remarkable precision. One day, a young student approached the master and said, "Teacher, I have practiced archery for years, but I am constantly distracted during competition. The crowd noise, the wind, my opponent's presence, everything seems to throw off my aim. How do you maintain such perfect focus when shooting?" The master smiled and handed the student a bow. "Show me your technique," he said. The student took careful aim at a distant target, but as he drew the string, a bird flew across his line of sight. He lowered the bow in frustration. "You see," the student said, "everything distracts me. How do you ignore all these interruptions?" "Ignore them?" the master replied, puzzled. "I don't ignore anything. Come, let me show you something." The master led the student to the top of a high cliff where the wind was howling and birds were circling overhead. Below them was a narrow ledge with a target placed upon it, an incredibly challenging shot requiring perfect precision in highly distracting conditions. "Watch carefully," the master said. As he raised his bow, the student expected him to block out the wind, ignore the birds, and focus solely on the target. Instead, something completely different happened. The master seemed to become one with everything around him. He felt the wind's rhythm and waited for the natural pause between gusts. He noticed the bird's flight pattern and sensed when they would clear his line of sight. He became aware of his own heartbeat, his breathing, the subtle tension in his muscles. Rather than fighting against these elements, he included them all in his awareness. When he finally released the arrow, it was as if the entire environment had aligned to support the shot. The arrow flew true and struck the center of the target perfectly. "You see," the master explained, "focus isn't about narrowing your awareness to exclude everything else. True focus is about expanding your awareness to include everything while maintaining clear intention." The bird that flew across your sight wasn't a distraction. It was information. The wind wasn't an obstacle. It was a dance partner. Your opponent's presence wasn't interference, it was part of the whole situation you needed to master. Over the following months, the master taught the student this paradoxical approach to focus. Instead of trying to concentrate harder, the student learned to concentrate more skillfully. Instead of fighting against distractions, he learned to include them in his field of awareness without losing sight of his target. The student discovered that this approach required developing two complementary abilities, what the master called wide awareness and pointed intention. Wide awareness meant maintaining a spacious, inclusive attention that could hold multiple elements simultaneously. Pointed intention meant maintaining clear direction and purpose within that spacious awareness.
A candle flame in a windstorm dies quickly, the master would say, but a bonfire in the same wind burns brighter. The secret isn't to hide from the wind, but to burn so strongly that the wind feeds your flame rather than extinguishing it. The student eventually realized that the master's teaching applied to far more than archery. In conversations, instead of being distracted by his own thoughts about what to say next, he learned to listen so fully that his responses arose naturally from deep understanding. In his work, instead of being scattered by competing priorities, he learned to hold the whole picture while taking focused action on the most important elements. Years later, when the student had become a master himself, he understood that the original teaching contained a profound secret about the nature of attention itself. The mind that tries to focus by excluding everything else becomes rigid and brittle. The mind that learns to focus by including everything while maintaining clear intention becomes flexible and powerful. This ancient wisdom reveals something crucial about staying focused in our modern distracted world. The solution isn't to retreat from complexity, but to develop the capacity to dance with it skillfully. True focus isn't about shutting out the world, it's about engaging with the world so skillfully that you can maintain your center while everything moves around you. Here's what transforms everything about staying focused in a distracted world. The goal isn't to eliminate distractions, it's to become so deeply engaged with what matters that distractions become irrelevant. Most people approach focus like they're trying to create a sterile laboratory environment where nothing can interfere with their concentration. They spend enormous energy trying to control their external environment, block out noise, eliminate interruptions, and create perfect conditions for focus. But this approach is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how attention actually works. Let me tell you about Maria, a software developer who was struggling with focus in her open office environment. She tried everything: noise-canceling headphones, productivity apps that block distracting websites, even requesting a transfer to a quieter part of the building. Despite all these efforts, she found herself more distracted than ever, constantly frustrated by her inability to maintain deep concentration. The breakthrough came when Maria stopped trying to control her environment and started working with her attention directly. Instead of fighting against the office chatter, she learned to use it as a background soundtrack that actually enhanced her focus. Instead of blocking all websites, she learned to notice when her mind was seeking distraction and gently guide it back to her work. Instead of demanding perfect silence, she developed the ability to concentrate so deeply that external noise became like distant music, present but not intrusive. This shift happened when Maria realized that her frustration with distractions was actually more distracting than the distractions themselves. She was spending more mental energy resisting interruptions than she was on her actual work. The meta-distraction of being annoyed by distractions was creating a cycle of fragmented attention that made everything worse. When she stopped fighting against her environment and started working with her natural capacity for engagement, something remarkable happened. She discovered that deep focus wasn't about forcing her mind to concentrate, but about finding work that was genuinely engaging enough to naturally capture her attention. When she was truly excited about a project, external distractions didn't disappear, but they lost their compelling quality. This reveals the revolutionary insight about focus in the modern world. The problem isn't that there are too many distractions, it's that there's not enough genuine engagement.
When you're truly absorbed in meaningful work, the notifications, noise, and interruptions that once seemed overwhelming become as irrelevant as background static on a radio when you're listening to beautiful music. Most people have this backwards. They think they need perfect conditions to do meaningful work, when actually doing meaningful work creates perfect conditions. They believe they need to eliminate distractions to find their passion, when finding their passion naturally eliminates the power of distractions. This insight completely changes your approach to focus. Instead of spending energy trying to control external circumstances, you invest that energy in cultivating internal engagement. Instead of fighting against the modern world, you learn to dance with it. Instead of seeing distractions as the enemy, you see lack of engagement as a real problem. The deeper truth is that distractions aren't actually external phenomena that assault your attention, they're internal responses to not being sufficiently engaged with what you're doing. That urge to check social media during important work isn't caused by the platform's addictive design, it's caused by your mind's natural tendency to seek more interesting stimulation when the current activity isn't compelling enough. When you understand this, you realize that building focus in a distracted world isn't about developing stronger willpower or better self-control. It's about becoming so skilled at finding and creating engaging experiences that your attention naturally wants to stay put. It's about learning to work with your mind's natural tendency to seek interesting stimulation rather than fighting against it. This is why some people seem immune to distractions while others are constantly pulled off course. It's not that they have superior discipline or better self-control, it's that they've learned to create such a rich, engaging relationship with their work that everything else becomes background noise. From this perspective, the modern world's abundance of distractions becomes an opportunity rather than a problem. Each potential distraction becomes a test of how engaging your current activity is. If you're constantly tempted by alternatives, it's valuable feedback that you need to find ways to make your primary work more compelling. This doesn't mean every task needs to be thrilling, or that you should only do work you're passionate about. It means learning to find the inherently interesting aspects of whatever you're doing, and cultivating the skills necessary to engage deeply with any activity. It means developing what we might call attention craftsmanship, the ability to create engagement even in routine or challenging work. The revolutionary insight is that in a world full of distractions, the deepest focus comes not from hiding from complexity, but from embracing it so skillfully that you become like the master archer, able to include everything in your awareness while maintaining unwavering intention toward what matters most.
Foundation 1. Awareness. The first foundation for staying focused in a distracted world is developing meta-awareness, the ability to observe your attention without being controlled by wherever it happens to be pointing. This isn't about forcing your mind to concentrate, but about becoming conscious of how your attention moves and learning to guide it with wisdom rather than being dragged around by every stimulus. Most people are unconscious of their attention patterns. They don't notice when their mind wanders, how long it takes to refocus, or what kinds of stimuli tend to capture their attention most easily. This unconsciousness makes them victims of whatever happens to be most compelling in their environment at any given moment. The practice begins with simply noticing when your attention has moved away from your intended focus. This might happen dozens of times during a work session, and that's completely normal. The goal isn't to prevent mind wandering, but to catch it quickly and gently guide your attention back to your chosen focus. Think of this like training a puppy. When the puppy wanders off, you don't punish it or get frustrated, you simply call it back with patience and consistency. Your attention is similar. It will naturally explore, and your job is to notice when it's wandered and kindly invite it back home. As you develop this foundation, you'll begin to recognize the early warning signs of distraction. You might notice a subtle restlessness before your mind starts seeking entertainment, or a particular kind of mental fatigue that makes you susceptible to interruptions. This early awareness gives you the opportunity to respond skillfully before your attention becomes completely scattered. This foundation also involves becoming aware of your attention's natural rhythms. Most people have certain times of day when focus comes easily and other times when concentration feels nearly impossible.
By becoming conscious of these rhythms, you can schedule your most important work during your natural peak focus periods and save routine tasks for times when deep concentration is more challenging. Awareness also means recognizing the difference between different kinds of mental activities and how they affect your attention. Reading email requires a different kind of focus than creative writing, which requires a different kind from analytical problem solving. Learning to match your attention style to your activity increases both effectiveness and satisfaction. Foundation 2. Intention. The second foundation is learning to set and maintain clear intentions for how you want to use your attention. This goes beyond simple goal setting to include developing a conscious relationship with your deeper purposes and values that can guide your attention choices throughout the day. Intention acts like a compass for your attention. When you have a clear sense of what matters most to you and why you're doing what you're doing, it becomes much easier to resist the pull of distractions that don't serve your deeper purposes. Without clear intention, every distraction seems equally valid, and your attention gets pulled in whatever direction is most immediately compelling. The practice involves regularly connecting with your why. Not just what you need to accomplish, but why it matters to you and how it connects to your larger values and goals. This connection creates what researchers call intrinsic motivation, which naturally generates sustained focus, because your attention wants to engage with activities that feel meaningful and personally significant.
This foundation also includes learning to set realistic intentions for your attention span and energy levels. Many people create frustration and scattered attention by expecting themselves to maintain intense focus for longer periods than is actually sustainable. Learning to work with your natural attention rhythms rather than against them creates more sustainable focus over time. Intention setting also involves deciding in advance how you'll handle distractions when they arise. This might include specific protocols for dealing with interruptions, designated times for checking messages, or predetermined signals that it's time to take a break and restore your attention. As this foundation develops, you'll find that your attention naturally aligns with your intentions more often. Instead of feeling like you're constantly fighting against distractions, you'll experience your attention as a willing partner in pursuing what matters most to you.
Recovery isn't just about taking breaks. It's about engaging in activities that actually restore your attention rather than further depleting it. Scrolling social media during a work break, for example, doesn't restore your capacity for focus. It often makes you more scattered and restless when you return to work. Genuine attention restoration comes from activities that engage different parts of your mind than your primary work, allow your conscious attention to rest, and connect you with experiences that naturally restore your sense of vitality and presence. This might include spending time in nature, engaging in physical activity, practicing meditation, or pursuing creative hobbies that feel refreshing rather than demanding. This foundation also involves understanding the difference between mental fatigue and genuine exhaustion. Mental fatigue often comes from attention fragmentation rather than from actual overuse of your thinking capacity. Sometimes what feels like the need for a break is actually the need for deeper engagement with your current activity. Learning to recognize when you need different types of recovery is crucial. Sometimes you need complete mental rest, sometimes you need gentle stimulation, and sometimes you need physical movement or social connection. Developing a variety of restoration practices ensures you can respond appropriately to different types of attention fatigue. Recovery also includes longer-term practices, like maintaining healthy sleep patterns, regular exercise, and periodic digital detoxes that allow your attention system to reset and restore its natural balance. These practices create the foundation that makes moment-to-moment focus much more accessible. As this foundation develops, you'll find that you can maintain high levels of focus for longer periods without exhaustion, because you're regularly restoring your attention before it becomes depleted. You'll also discover that quality recovery time makes your focused work time much more effective and satisfying. Now that you understand the 4 foundations, let's explore specific strategies for implementing these principles in your daily life. Remember, the goal isn't to create a perfect focus system overnight, but to gradually develop habits and skills that support sustained attention in whatever environment you find yourself. Daily structure. Morning intention setting.
Begin each day by spending 5 minutes clarifying your priorities and setting intentions for how you want to use your attention. This isn't just about making a to-do list, but about connecting with why these activities matter and how you want to approach them mentally and emotionally. Focus blocks. Structure your day around dedicated periods of focused work rather than trying to maintain constant concentration. Most people can sustain deep focus for 45 to 90 minutes at a time, depending on the type of work and their current capacity. Plan your most important work during these blocks and protect them from interruptions. Transition rituals. Develop brief practices that help you shift between different types of activities. This might be taking 3 conscious breaths before starting a new task, reviewing your intention for the next activity, or spending a moment to clear your mental workspace before beginning focus work.
Environmental design. Optimize your space. Create physical environments that support focus rather than fragment it. This doesn't mean sterile or boring spaces, but rather environments that help your attention settle and engage rather than constantly seeking stimulation elsewhere. Strategic constraints. Use technology wisely by creating helpful limitations rather than trying to maintain perfect self-control. This might include using apps that limit access to distracting websites during work hours, keeping your phone in another room during focus work, or setting specific times for checking messages. Sensory considerations. Pay attention to how different sensory inputs affect your ability to focus. Some people concentrate better with background music, others need complete silence. Some focus better in bright light, others prefer softer illumination. Experiment to discover what works best for you. Social boundaries. Communicate your focus needs clearly to colleagues, family, and friends. This might include establishing do not disturb signals, setting expectations about response times to messages, or creating agreements about when interruptions are and aren't appropriate. Technology management. Intentional consumption. Approach information consumption with the same intentionality you bring to food consumption. Just as you wouldn't eat everything available, don't consume every piece of information that's offered to you. Choose your inputs based on your values and goals rather than just availability and convenience. Batch processing. Group similar activities together rather than switching between different types of tasks throughout the day. Check email at specific times rather than constantly throughout the day. Process administrative tasks in dedicated blocks rather than mixing them with creative work. Notification strategy. Be extremely selective about what types of notifications you allow to interrupt your attention. Most notifications aren't actually urgent and can be processed during designated times rather than immediately when they arrive. Digital Sabbaths. Regularly take breaks from digital stimulation to allow your attention to restore its natural rhythms. This might be for a few hours each day, 1 day per week, or longer periods during vacations. Advanced practices. Attention training. Develop your capacity for sustained focus through specific practices like meditation, reading long-form content, or engaging in activities that require sustained concentration. These practices strengthen your attention muscles, just like physical exercise strengthens your body. Mindful multitasking. Learn to distinguish between effective multitasking, switching skillfully between related activities, and attention fragmentation, constantly interrupting yourself with unrelated stimuli. Sometimes managing multiple related tasks can actually enhance focus by creating variety and preventing mental fatigue. Flow state cultivation. Actively seek opportunities to experience deep absorption in activities you find intrinsically rewarding. Pay attention to what conditions help you enter flow states and try to replicate those conditions in your work when possible. Metacognitive development. Regularly reflect on your attention patterns, what works well for you, and what could be improved. This ongoing self-awareness helps you continuously refine your approach and adapt to changing circumstances. Dealing with challenges. When focus feels impossible, some days your attention will feel more scattered than others due to stress, fatigue, hormonal changes, or external circumstances. On these days, adjust your expectations and focus on maintaining awareness and intention rather than trying to force deep concentration. Social pressure. Others might not understand or support your focus practices. They might interpret your boundaries as antisocial or your focus periods as unavailable. Communicate clearly about your needs while remaining flexible about how you meet them in social contexts.
Perfectionism. Don't expect to maintain perfect focus or never get distracted. The goal is progress, not perfection. Each time you notice your attention has wandered and gently bring it back, you're building your focus muscles regardless of how many times it happens. Changing circumstances. Your focus needs and capacities will change over time due to life circumstances, aging, health changes, and evolving responsibilities. Stay flexible and experimental in your approach, rather than rigidly adhering to strategies that may no longer serve you. As you continue developing your capacity for focus in our distracted world, you'll notice profound changes that extend far beyond improved productivity. Deep focus becomes a gateway to richer experiences, more meaningful work, and a greater sense of presence and aliveness in your daily life. Enhanced creativity. When you can sustain attention long enough to move beyond surface-level thinking, you naturally access deeper wells of creativity and insight. The scattered mind can only recombine existing ideas in familiar ways, but the focused mind can dive deep enough to discover genuinely original connections and solutions. This enhanced creativity shows up not just in artistic endeavors, but in problem-solving, relationship building, and life design. You become more innovative in your approach to challenges because you can think about them long enough and deep enough to move beyond conventional solutions. Deeper relationships. Focus skills dramatically improve your capacity for meaningful connection with others. When you can give someone your full attention without being pulled away by mental distractions, conversations become richer, more satisfying, and more authentic for both parties. This presence also helps you listen more skillfully, picking up on subtle emotional cues and deeper meanings that you might miss when your attention is scattered. Your relationships naturally deepen because people feel seen and heard in a way that's increasingly rare in our distracted culture. Increased satisfaction. Perhaps most importantly, the ability to focus deeply increases your overall life satisfaction. When you can be fully present with experiences as they're happening, rather than thinking about what you should be doing next or worrying about problems that may never materialize, life becomes more vivid and meaningful. This satisfaction comes partly from accomplishing more of what matters to you, but more importantly, from the quality of attention you bring to whatever you're doing. Even routine activities become more enjoyable when approached with focused awareness. Natural confidence. As your focus skills develop, you naturally become more confident in your ability to handle challenges and pursue meaningful goals. This type of confidence is particularly valuable in our rapidly changing world because it's based on adaptable skills rather than specific knowledge or circumstances that may become obsolete.
Contribution capacity. Strong focus skills enable you to make more meaningful contributions to your work, relationships, and community. When you can think deeply about complex problems, you're more likely to develop insights and solutions that actually help others. When you can listen fully to someone who's struggling, you're more likely to offer genuinely helpful support. Your focused presence becomes a gift to everyone you interact with, modeling a way of being that's both rare and desperately needed in our distracted culture. Ongoing evolution. Developing focus in a distracted world is not a destination you reach, but a practice you refine throughout your life. As technology continues to evolve and new forms of distraction emerge, your focus skills will continue to develop and adapt. The beautiful aspect of this journey is that each challenge to your attention becomes an opportunity to deepen your skills. Each new distraction becomes a chance to practice returning to what matters. Each moment of scattered attention becomes a doorway back to presence and intention. Remember that your growing capacity for focus is both a personal achievement and a service to the world. In a culture that increasingly values speed over depth, reaction over reflection, and stimulation over wisdom, your commitment to sustain the tension becomes a form of resistance and a beacon of possibility for others.